Okay, welcome and welcome back, team. Hermitarius here. This video is about Sun moving into Scorpio and Neptune moving into Pisces. To me, these have something to do with each other, so they're getting a video. Okay, Sun in Scorpio, Neptune in Pisces, and Mars's ongoing story. This was my original note page that I was taking for this, so I kind of drew the chart. I have a Scorpio rising, and I prefer the Witch's Wheel of the chart year, or the Witch's Wheel of the Year chart, which puts Scorpio rising as the rising, which puts Capricorn in the wintertime and Leo in the summertime, and I live in a winter place, so that makes sense for me. Um, so we have Sun in Scorpio, and Mars is co-present right now, and that's really nice. So we're maybe going to get some information here that is going to repeat because these guys meet in Capricorn in January. What's interesting about that is that Neptune has just moved into Pisces from Aries. Where is he going back to? Aries. Where is the ruler of Capricorn going back to? Aries. Who rules Aries? Mars. Who's having conjunctions in Aries? Saturn and Neptune. So I feel like with this trine here happening from Scorpio to Neptune, where Neptune, or to Pisces, where Neptune and Saturn are going to be, and then they've got a trine to their ruler right now. Jupiter rules Pisces, and Jupiter's up in Cancer, so there's a nice water trine happening over the next little bit until November 4th when Mars moves out of Scorpio. And then um, it changes from a trine to a square where Sun and Mars at different times will be in Sagittarius, squaring this energy, but trining the soon, like the eventual placement in Aries. And then these two will meet up in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and so there might be, and also Mars's exaltation. So there will be some good information here about the ongoing story. And then we have conjunctions with each Mars Saturn, Mars Neptune, Sun Saturn, Sun Neptune, and Saturn Neptune. So I kind of wrote all of those down. These are the dates that Neptune has been in different signs. So Neptune dipped into Pisces for 4 months in 2011, went back into Aquarius, spent the bulk of so from February 2012 until March 2025 was in Pisces. From March 25 to October 25, spent some time in Aries. Now, October 25 until January 26, we'll have the last stint in Pisces. We're having this initial little March to October, so this 7 month stint in Aries for the first time before we have a 26 to 38 is a 12 year before we have a 12-year transit happening in Aries, and then Neptune will dip into Taurus and then come back for a last little stint in Aries. So this dip into Pisces here is not only the last finale denouement note about what Neptune's greater transit in Pisces was, but it's also a little breather because we got a preview of what Neptune in Aries is going to look like for its long-term stint here, this long-term transit that's going to last 12 years. And so I feel like this interface right now is a chance to not only give some extra like meaning and verve to what happened here and to wrap that up, but to take into consideration what happened since March to October in our Aries house as far as Neptune significations go, and how that affected our Pisces house, and how can we use, now that Neptune's back in Pisces, how we can use our Pisces house themes to like influence maybe a better outcome in the Aries house themes. I don't know if that made any sense, but there's the puzzle piece of what Neptune's doing. And then here's all the random dates. So I have Sun has just moved, or is just moving into Scorpio, and Mars is kind of at 20-ish degree Scorpio. So that's not under the beams or combustion. That's too far. That's 20 degrees instead of like 18-ish, which is the generic number I use for under the beams. But then Sun is gaining on Mars, and they're going to be just together as they come together in Capricorn in January, and then Sun will overtake and pass, and it's slow going. It's like walking past someone on the sidewalk, and like you guys walk the same speed. Like it's so agonizing. Sun will take a while to peel away from Mars, and we'll start having these contacts with Saturn and Neptune in Aries in March, and then at the end of March is when Mars leaves under the beams and is fully visible in the sky again. And then Mars will have those conjunctions in Aries in April. So we're going from basically October 31st to about March 31st as Mars being close to the sun in the heat of the sun, which, because Mars is a hot, aggressive, kind of combustive planet, it will possibly amp up that aggression, that fire, that combustion, as well as the themes of a planet and its significations not being clearly seen when they're under the beams. You can't really see what's going on. And then you tie that into the mirror significations of Neptune throwing a veil over things and Pisces being underwater. And there's a whole lot of nebulousness. There's a whole lot of what's going on. We can't really see it. And which is why I feel like not only these first few days of Mars and Sun being co-present in Mars's ruling, like Mars rules Scorpio, so like that's some information, particularly with this water trine. Mars and Saturn both having some kind of rulership in Capricorn, and that being the place of the conjunction. Not only Mars's conjunction, all of the inner planets are having conjunctions in Capricorn with the Sun and each other. So that's going to give us some information, which not only sextiles where these planets, Saturn and Neptune, are like during it in Pisces, but squares and still has line of sight to Aries, which is where the contact points will next happen. So I feel like in the miasma of what is going on, because we can't see Mars, and like good luck seeing Neptune or Pisces clearly regardless, I feel like these touch points of Sun in Scorpio, particularly when Mars is co-present, and then this conjunction that's happening in Capricorn, and then the touch points of those conjunctions in Aries will kind of piece the story together a little bit more clearly than just trying to follow it separately. So Scorpio sextiles Capricorn, which sextiles Pisces, and so Scorpio and Pisces trine. Scorpio can't see Aries, and so if we're trying to get information on what is going to happen here in Mars's other sign just from this information, we're probably not going to get it because Pisces can't see Aries and Scorpio can't see Aries. Where can we get information about this? Well, why not from Mars's exaltation? And, Saturn's going to be in here. Saturn's ruling sign here in Capricorn. So that is the, I guess, rationale for all of this information. I also included that, so the exact conjunction, not Kazemi because I didn't include 17-minute separation, I just did exact conjunction, lasts for 2 minutes or 3 minutes from 1912 to 1915 Capricorn on January 9th. And it's about an hour and a half of time, I believe. And then how long are they holding about a degree? Like if you were to open the chart and be like, oh, they're at the same degree, you're going to be able to see that even though it's not an exact conjunction, they're going to be within about a degree of each other from January 4th to January 13th. So a little bit over a week where they really are tight together. A few hours in one day where they're together, and 7 months where Mars is just kind of close to the sun as the sun approaches Mars and overtakes and then peels away. Okay? Because we don't have sight to Aries, which is like, Aries is like the climax of the story. Like we're all very interested in this right here. And so we're interested in the ruler of this, which is Mars, because it's happening in Aries. So we're interested in what Mars has to say about that. And he's going to come right after, 2 months after this happens. He's going to come and talk to them. So I want to get as much eyesight onto this place, Aries, as I can. So from Scorpio, can't see it. Sagittarius will have a trine, but Mars and Sun aren't really talking to each other much. They'll have squares to Saturn and Neptune, so those will be important. I didn't write those down, but those are probably important to track. From Capricorn, we're going to be able to square, And then from Aquarius is our last chance to get kind of some eyesight onto Aries, and that's going to be the sextile. So I wrote down those sextiles down here. Wish that wouldn't happen. So Sun is in Aquarius from Jan 19 to Feb 18, and Mars is in Aquarius from Jan 23 to March 2nd. And then from February 18th until Sun moves into Aries, we're blind. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in Aries. And then from March 2nd until Mars moves into Aries in April, I believe. Mars doesn't have hands on this house. He's not on top of it. So I feel like it's really nice that this conjunction in Aries is happening when Mars can see it from Aquarius. Okay, so that's the preamble. Here is the non-written version of that. We've got this quincunx between Scorpio and Aries. So Mars and Sun can't see Aries, and I know no one's in Aries right now because Neptune just left it, but we still care about what's happening here next spring or next February, March, April. We do have a trine from Scorpio to Pisces, so that's really nice that Sun will be able to see. Neptune just moved into Pisces. Mars is here with Sun. We're going to be able to get some information from that. There's a square from Capricorn to Aries. And why is that nice? Because all of these conjunctions are going to happen in Capricorn, which might give us some information. And Capricorn can also see Pisces, so I feel like that's just another layer of information to get. Sun and Mars are co-present in one of Mars's signs. We'll have the conjunction in Capricorn in January, sextile currently to Neptune, and square to where Neptune's going back to. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction is also happening in Aries, and so the Sun-Mars conjunctions to both are happening in Aries. So this is why I'm focusing on Aries, even though no one's in Aries and we're in water houses. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So Sun is in Scorpio from October 22nd to November 21st. Ruler Mars is co-present until November 4th. So I feel like this window, October 22 to November 4, is a good time to set some foundations, do some soul searching, get some information about how we're moving forward, especially as this is going to be kind of the last usable or visible contact point before the conjunction in Capricorn. Because once Mars and then Sun move into Sagittarius, Sagittarius is an aspect to Capricorn, so we can't really see it. Not only will we not be able to see Capricorn from Sag, but we can't see Mars with the Sun because they're too close at that point. Neptune in Pisces originally was April to August 2011. The big transit that we are wrapping up now, February to March 2025, and then this little finale end note from today, October 22, which is when I'm recording this, to January 2026. And through this whole span here, October 22 to January 26, 2026, Neptune is going to be trine ruler Jupiter, which is exalted in Cancer. So that's really nice. Jupiter would have been all over the place over this 12-year span, right? 13-year span. But right now, Jupiter is kind of parked in Cancer. So you can see Pisces. He's resourced in Pisces. That's very nice. We like to see that. Neptune in Pisces and Aries, these are the dates. So right now, we're wrapping up the Pisces story, and we're doing one final last prep for the Aries story. I just put those full dates here as well. And then I ripped through the astrology podcast Neptune episode, and I made this little Neptune word bubble. I have the free version of wordart.com, so that's why it's blurry, because I can't download a high definition version. But here's just some random Neptune words, phrases, terms that you may be able to apply to these dates and these houses specifically in your chart. Okay? So here's the timeline in order. October 22nd, Sun enters Scorpio, Neptune enters Pisces for the last time. On October 31st, Mars goes under the beams, which is approximately 18 degrees proximity to the Sun. On November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius, and so the co-presence with the Sun in Mars's own sign, Scorpio, is over. On November 21st, Sun leaves Scorpio. November 27th, Saturn stations direct. December 5th, Mars enters combustion, which is gets closer to the Sun. Now he's getting really hot. December 10th, Neptune stations direct. January 9th, Mars Sun conjunction. And from January 4th to 13th, they're holding about a 1 degree aspect. So every time you open the chart over this, 12 days, we're going to see that they're basically conjunct. January 26th, Neptune goes back into Aries for the final time. Well, yeah, so we're entering Aries from the Pisces cusp for the final time. Neptune won't cross that house cusp, Pisces Aries, again for like 250 years. And then February 13th, Saturn enters Aries again from the Pisces cups for the final time. They may come back in from Taurus. I'm not worried about that right now. February 17th, Mars leaves combustion. February 20th, Saturn Neptune conjunction. That is very nice. I would be more concerned about this conjunction happening when Mars was still combust, but he's just left it 3 days prior, and so he's beginning to do the cool down as Sun peels away, and soon he'll be out from under the beams and will be visible. So this entire Jan 19th to Feb 18th, Sun is in Aquarius, aspecting Aries. So Sun does not have eyes on the Saturn Neptune conjunction, but while Mars is combust, Sun is kind of, because Mars is with Sun in that combustion, Sun may be taking the authority there for Mars. And then Sun gets too far away, Mars leaves combustion, Mars may get a little bit more authority back. I'm not sure, we'll have to see. If you've got experience working with combustion and under the beams, and if you think that Mars still has no authority being out of combustion but still under the beams, let me know. But even though Sun has like given some authority back to Mars, that's great because then the conjunction happens and Mars maybe has something to say or see about it, and he can see it because he's still in Aquarius aspecting Aries, so I think that's great. March 22nd, Sun conjuncts Neptune in Aries. March 25th, Sun conjuncts Saturn in Aries. March 31st, Mars exits from under the beams, so the 7-month invisibility portion of Mars's orbit or Mars's transit is over. And then Mars gets to do these conjunctions with the far planets in his sign. So I feel like as far as being invisible and getting too hot and having this thing happening in his fire sign, I feel like the timing of this is still very beneficial. Like it's not a giant cause for concern because Mars can see the conjunction from Aquarius, which is great. He's not combust when it happens, which is great. And then by the time he contacts these planets that he's hosting in his fire sign, especially Saturn, which like doesn't like it there, and Neptune's so watery that there might be a lot of steam, right? There might be a lot of fog, but a little bit less because Mars won't be combust or under the beams. He's just going to be like freshly awakened, freshly energized, freshly juiced up from the Sun when he talks to these guys. So I feel like that's good news, but we'll have to see. Okay, that's what I have for Neptune in Pisces for the final time and Sun in Scorpio. Thanks for watching. If you would like to support my channel, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. If you would like to support me, there are links in the description. Thanks, bye!